Surviving career. Workplace. Step 1. Lunchtime. The most important morning routine is to check today's menu. Food is essential for survival. Memorize today's menu. The highlight of office life. Lunchtime. Rice in the bottom left, soup in the bottom right. The top is for the sides. The sauce and the spoon go here. This is the basic layout, but it's a bit odd to switch rice and soup. When you're done, pour the leftovers into the soup bowl. It doesn't look that appetizing, so wait until others are done eating. Step 2. Neng, nep, nenep. These are the most used expressions at work. Choose the most appropriate form. Neng, nep, nenep. Remember that the formal ne can sound a bit stiff. Did you just say yes? Absolutely not acceptable. You want to find the right word for the right occasion. Step 3. Desteria. Desteria is the oasis in the desert. Show them your character. If you're not the diligent type, get a stooky plant. Work is tough. Laugh and the whole world laughs with you. Weep and you weep alone. Stay put, like the stooky that survives in the desert. Hang in there until the end. Of course, you can always quit. You matter more than anything else. Step 4. Survival kit. Every worker needs a survival kit. Survival kit level 1. This position gets the most exposure. Grab one when you need a sugar boost. Always keep a few treats you can offer your co-workers. Survival kit level 2. These are for hunger pangs before and after a meal. You'll need them when you take a coffee break with your office buddies. Survival kit level 3. Trash talking your boss with your soulmate. Did you survive in the workplace? Office romance? Be careful. Even the photocopier knows all the gossip.
South Korea's stock market surpassed the 2,900-point mark for the first time in over 3 years on Wednesday, thanks to continued foreign inflow. On the same day, President Jimin called for stern measures against stock manipulation and unfair trading practices to make sure the financial markets revitalize. South Korea's military halted its loudspeaker broadcast along the border against North Korea as of Wednesday, a clear shift in stance from the new Lee administration's approach to North Korea issues. Jungkook and Jimin of BTS were discharged from their 18-month military service on Wednesday, which now leaves just Suga still on mandatory duty. Good evening. South Korean stocks extended their post-election honeymoon rally on Wednesday. In fact, the benchmark KOSPI soared to an over 3-year high on a foreign buying spree and eased tariff uncertainties. Our Park Jun-an leads our coverage tonight.
South Korea's benchmark KOSPI surpassed 2,900 on Wednesday for the first time in 3 years and 5 months. The KOSPI, which closed below 2,300 on April 9th, has sharply rebounded, gaining over 25% to close at just above 2,907. Among stocks showing strong momentum were those in the financial and semiconductor sectors. Globally, easing uncertainties, especially from the de-escalation of U.S.-China tariff tensions following high-level talks, boosted the rise of Korean semiconductor stocks.
Financial groups and such have risen relatively a bit. I think it's fair to say that the semiconductor industry is also taking part in the uptrend due to the improvement in external conditions.
President Jimin, while he was running for the presidency, said he was committed to achieving KOSPI 5,000 by improving corporate governance and eradicating abuses of management control. Now that Yi has taken office, expectations for his administration's economic policies are fueling investor expectations, which is driving the market rally.
Although these policies have not yet been implemented, the administration is considering measures such as a large-scale supplementary budget to stimulate the domestic economy. Also, expectations that amendments to the Korean Commercial Act will strengthen shareholder protections have generally driven an inflow of foreign funds.
On Wednesday, President Yi visited the Korea Exchange to discuss how to revitalize the stock market by observing operations. At the exchange, Yi said his administration was reviewing the introduction of systems to detect unfair transactions early. Yi also said he plans to introduce a zero-tolerance policy on stock price manipulation. Such a policy would include clawing back any ill-gotten gains. Park Jun-han, Arirang News.
Also, for the first time in over a year, employment expanded in South Korea by over 200,000 in May. But the expansion was uneven depending on the sector. Our Kim Do-yeon has this report.
South Korea saw the largest increase in employment in 13 months, rising for a fifth consecutive month in May. According to Statistics Korea on Wednesday, the number of employed people aged 15 or older in May reached 29.16 million, up 245,000 compared to the same period last year. Though the trend had been an incline recently, it's also the first time in over a year the figure went past 200,000 mark. The same sectors continue to lead the incline, with the same sectors also seeing declines.
By industry, employment increased in sectors such as healthcare and social welfare services, professional, scientific and technical services, and finance and insurance. However, it declined year on year in sectors including agriculture, forestry and fisheries, construction and manufacturing.
In fact, the manufacturing sector saw a decline of 67,000 jobs on year, a smaller decline compared to past months, attributing to overall growth. On the other hand, the accommodation and restaurant industry saw, for the first time, a decline in employment in over a year. The number of employees in the industry dropped by 67,000 compared to a year ago, marking the first decline in 15 months. The decrease is the largest since November 2021, when COVID-19 was in full swing, with a drop of 86,000. However, there's hope, as a supplementary budget is expected with the new Lee Jae-myung administration and the ruling Democratic Party holding majority to support President Lee's motivation. Local currencies or universal cash distribution seem to be the options.
Providing payments in the form of local currency can help boost the regional economy. So we could see a temporary increase in spending, particularly in sectors like services, lodging, and dining, which may lead to a slight uptick in employment.
In the meantime, for the first time ever, South Korea's workforce aged 60 and over has surpassed 7 million. This comes as younger age groups, except those in their 30s, saw employment declines, with more seniors staying in the labor market amid a rapidly aging population. The overall employment rate for those 15 and older rose to 63.8%, up 0.3 percentage points from a year ago. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
President Jimin held a 20-minute phone call with Czech Prime Minister Petr Fiala on Wednesday afternoon. According to presidential spokesperson Kang Yoo-jung, the two leaders described the recent $18 billion contract for South Korea to build 2 nuclear reactors at the Dukovany power plant as a milestone for expanding economic cooperation, and agreed to broaden cooperation beyond nuclear energy to include advanced industries, infrastructure, and energy. The leaders also noted this year marks the 35th anniversary of diplomatic ties between South Korea and the Czech Republic. President Yi invited Prime Minister Fiala to South Korea at a convenient time, to which Fiala responded with his appreciation. The U.S. has finally confirmed a top-level call that took place last week between new President Lee Jae-myung and President Donald Trump. This comes amid growing anticipation that the two leaders will engage in a face-to-face meeting at the G7 summit, which will kick off in a matter of days. Our Oh Seong has more.
Washington says it's confident that the South Korea-US alliance will continue to thrive under new President Lee Jae-myung, confirming that the new leader held a phone call with President Donald Trump last week. On Tuesday, State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce said at a press briefing that the US congratulates Lee on his election win, expressing optimism in response to a question about Lee's, quote, pragmatic approach to bilateral ties. She acknowledged that Yi had spoken with Trump last Friday in a 20-minute phone call, marking the first time a US official confirmed the call had taken place. The conversation itself happened later than expected, on the third day of the Yi administration, bearing contrast with former presidents Moon Jae-in and Yoon Suk-yeol, who spoke on the phones with their American counterparts within hours of taking office. Following the belated call, President Yi's office almost immediately announced it had taken place, elaborating how the two leaders exchanged pleasantries and agreed on making efforts to reach a mutually satisfactory agreement on tariffs before the Trump administration begins imposing its delayed reciprocal duties on imports. The Yi administration is reportedly aiming to postpone the July 8th deadline. However, no readouts or messages emerged from Washington regarding the top-level conversation. Experts have speculated the delay may have been intentional on the US side as a means of passively pressuring Seoul amid negotiations.
We need to understand Trump's worldview different from, predecessors. He considers weakening of America is not mainly because of enemy country, hostile country like Soviet Union, Russia, China, and things like that. Rather than this enemy country, but because the weakness comes from allies and partners who exploited U.S. market unfairly and free riding on security.
The two leaders also reportedly agreed to hold a face-to-face meeting soon, with the US president extending an invitation to visit America. But first, Yi and Trump are likely to hold a brief summit on the sidelines of the G7 meeting in Canada starting June 15th. Oh Seong, Arirang News.
The South Korean military has, from today, halted loudspeaker broadcasts against North Korea and border areas, just 1 week after President Yi's inauguration. And now this, following the president's orders made earlier this afternoon, aiming to ease military tensions between the two Koreas, paving the way for restored mutual trust. President Yi is set to have made the decision in light of the recent absence of any major provocations from the north, but clarified that there was no prior consultation with Pyongyang regarding this measure. The halt comes for the first time in a year since the former Yoon administration resumed broadcast last June for the first time in 6 years in response to North Korea's trash balloon campaigns. National Assembly Speaker Woo Won-sik has said while President Yi remains committed to constitutional reform, changes could take some time. Marking his first year in office on Wednesday, Woo stressed that reform must be carefully timed, as the new government is starting without a transition team and talks will need to be held. He floated the idea of a constitutional referendum alongside a presidential election back in April in order to address calls for a decentralization of power following the martial law declaration declaration, but he withdrew the idea after a backlash. Wu also called for the swift passage of a supplementary budget to address urgent economic and diplomatic challenges. Starting Tuesday, parts of downtown LA have been under an 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew as the protests against Trump's immigration crackdown continue. Now, LA police reportedly began mass arrests on the first night of the curfew. Our Shinayang reports.
Protests against the Trump administration's immigration crackdown have continued for several days in Los Angeles. In response, the city imposed a nighttime curfew on Tuesday in parts of downtown. Mayor Karen Bass said the curfew covers a 1 square mile area in downtown LA where most of the protests are taking place. It runs from 8 p.m. on Tuesday to 6 a.m. the next morning. She explained that 23 businesses were looted and there was widespread vandalism that occurred the night before, saying the city had reached a tipping point. Bass said it could be in effect for a few days, but the city will decide later whether to extend it. According to CNN, the Los Angeles Police Department said that several groups were still gathering in areas under curfew and noted that it had begun making mass arrests. The demonstrations against the crackdown and deportation of illegal immigrants are spreading to other major cities, including San Francisco, New York, and Chicago. Amid the further outbreaks, Texas Governor Greg Abbott announced that the Texas National Guard will be deployed across the state to maintain peace and order. Abbott said peaceful protests would be allowed, but anyone harming people or property would be arrested, adding that the National Guard will do everything it can to help the police maintain order. The decision came after President Donald Trump sent a National Guard to the protest in Los Angeles. With concerns lingering over the current state of the Los Angeles area, hundreds of U.S. Marines arrived also on Tuesday under orders from President Trump. Along with the recent deployment of Marines, some 4,000 National Guard members have been sent to LA to control the protests. Meanwhile, progressive groups say that they'll be holding more than 1,500 No Kings protests across the country on Saturday, which is the same day a military parade is set to take place in the U.S. Capitol, marking the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary. The organizers believe that Trump is using the anniversary to celebrate his birthday, which is also on June 14th. 신하영, Arirang News.
More than half of OLED TVs sold in North America during the first quarter of this year were made by LG Electronics. This is according to market research from Statista on Wednesday, with the specific market share at 51%. This also means that LG has maintained the market lead for 13 straight years. LG's OLED TVs have recently been touted by the IT media, such as Consumer Reports and Mashable. The reasons why LG OLED TVs are popular in the North American market include outstanding picture quality and differentiated AI feature, among others. Other OLED-making competitors for LG include Samsung, Panasonic, and Sony. Two more BTS members, Jungkook and Jimin, returned from their mandatory military service on Wednesday. Now it's just Suga that the army are awaiting to see all 7 members on one stage. Our Park Hyo-bin fills us in with more.
As they stepped out of the car, Jungkook and Jimin were greeted with loud cheers, bouquets in hand, smiling at their fans. The pair enlisted together back in December 2023, served in the army, and were officially discharged from mandatory military service on Wednesday morning. After a short salute, Jungkook thanked those he served with.
To our seniors and the officers who spent time with us, thank you so much for taking good care of us.
Jimin expressed heartfelt appreciation for the fans who had waited for them.
With our service now behind us, I believe it's time to keep building the vision we've been working on. We'll do our best to come back with something even better.
Fans from across the globe gathered near the base from early morning to welcome the two stars. Banners reading "Purple is back" and "Jungkook's moment begins now" line the area, along with giant balloons. With Jin and Taeyup already discharged last year and RM and V returning on Tuesday, only one member remains before a full reunion. Suga, currently serving as a social service worker, is set to complete his duty later this month. As BTS celebrates the 12th anniversary of its debut this Friday, excitement is building for a long-awaited full group comeback, possibly just around the corner. Park Hyubin, Arirang News.
A South Korean animation is taking the U.S. box office by storm, even surging past director Bong Joon-ho's Oscar-winning Parasite. Now that is The King of Kings by director Jang Seong-ho. Our Choi Soo-hyung sat down with him.
The King of Kings is a 3D animated film directed by Jang Seong-ho. It tells the life story of Jesus based on the book The Life of Our Lord by British author Charles Dickens. Famous Hollywood actors like Pierce Brosnan, Uma Thurman, and Ben Kingsley voiced the characters. Following its release in the U.S. on April 11th, the film made over $54 million in just 17 days, breaking the box office record of Bong Joon-ho's Parasite for the highest-grossing Korean film in the U.S. Director Jang Seong-ho expressed both pride and humility about achieving such success with a non-Korean story told through a Korean production team.
I had been running a visual effects company for a long time, so I was confident in technical skills. I thought animation was the best way to fully use them. But Korea couldn't support the budget, so we aimed for the U.S. market. Christian content there almost never fails, and no one had ever made a full-length animated film about Jesus. That's when I knew this would work.
He said Christianity is deeply rooted in American culture, so he adapted Dickens' book to avoid cliché and worked hard to make it feel natural to international audiences.
We were inspired by Dickens' book for a fresh approach to tell the story through the eyes of a curious child learning who the true king is. Since our main target was America, we focused on making it feel natural to their audience. We got expert advice and many reviews to ensure it wasn't just imitation, but something truly comfortable.
He said it was tough to focus fully on character quality and production without much support.
Creating delicate character movement was a real challenge, and I'm not fully satisfied with the results. Most of my energy went into securing funding without much support, not creating. But now, with better support and conditions, I'm confident the next project will be much stronger.
He hopes that Korea's animation environment won't waste the talents of Korean creators.
There are many talented Koreans, but a lack of opportunities pushes them away, often abroad. Many are now working in Hollywood. I hope the success of my work, The King of Kings, helps create a better environment so they can return and shine in Korea.
The King of Kings will be released in Korea on July 23rd. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
Representatives from multilateral development banks, local companies, and the Korean government gathered here in Seoul for talks on ways to foster cooperation in the environmental and green technology industry. Our Moon Ji-young tells us more.
Strengthening cooperation between domestic companies and global partners and promoting local companies' eco-friendly technologies is what the Ministry of Environment and the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy aim to achieve at the 18th Global Green of Korea Forum currently being held in Seoul.
We hope that this year's forum serves as a platform to enable participants to see new business opportunities by sharing each country's policies and efforts for carbon reduction, as well as the success stories of international development banks.
The forum, which opened on Wednesday, seeks to provide a robust platform for eco-friendly and energy industry businesses in alignment with the global trend of carbon reduction to support the overseas expansion of domestic companies and the securing of crucial growth engines. This key event provides networking opportunities, project briefings, and matchmaking for Korean and international businesses.
Korea's leadership in environmental technology is an example that we admire. and we're eager to build bridges of cooperation that benefit both of our people.
The scale of the projects presented by the overseas clients and buyers at this year's event amounts to a total of $8 billion. Key projects include the Bangladesh Water Supply and Sewerage Authority water treatment project. Over the course of 3 days, domestic companies will have the opportunity to actively promote the excellence of a variety of environmental and green technologies to potential overseas clients and buyers. 문지영, Arirang News.
Summer heat of around 30 degrees Celsius warmed up most parts of the country. The daytime temperature moved up to 29 degrees in Seoul. Tomorrow, temperatures will rise up to 31 degrees. Under the clear sky, strong UV rays continue during the day. The ultraviolet index will rise to a very high level from the morning. Then UV rays will be at their peak in the afternoon. Make sure to protect yourself from the strong rays. Tomorrow morning, Seoul, Daejeon, and Gyeongju will start off at 17 degrees, Busan at 20 degrees. Highs will move up to 30 degrees in Chuncheon, Daejeon, and Daegu, 23 degrees in Jeju Island. It will start to rain on Jeju Island tomorrow and spread to southern parts of Chungcheongdo province by Friday. Rain is forecast all over the country on Saturday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. For all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.
저희 누나가 발레를 하다 보니까 자연스럽게 누나 발레 학원에 따라가서 누나가 하는 모습을 보니까 저도 하고 싶다고 생각이 조금 들어서 발레 음악에 맞춰서 아무 춤이나 추다 보니까 그냥 그 음악에 맞춰서 제가 몸을 움직이는 게 재밌다고 느껴졌었는지 발레를 계속 하고 있더라고요. 나이가 좀 어릴 때 제가 가진 장점이 무엇인지도 모르고 아예 제가 가진 단점도 모를 때 발레를 시작했다 보니까 제일 큰 문제가 이제 평발이었던 것 같아요. 평발이다 보니까 발레를 할 때 쥐가 조금 많이 나는 편이라 그거를 견뎌가면서 춤을 계속 춰야 했던 거 그게 가장 극복하기 힘들었던 것 같고요. 제가 다리가 다른 친구들보다 조금 두껍다고 해서 제 다리를 조금 싫어했었는데 근데 이제 로잔에 갔다 오고 나서 오히려 제 다리에서 나오는 파워풀한 힘이 좋았다고 해주시는 분들도 있다는 걸 느껴가지고 그 두 개가 가장 극복하기도 힘들었고 기억에 남는 것 같아요. 프릭스티 로잔이라는 콩쿨 자체가 학생들 사이에서는 가장 크고 의미 있는 콩쿨이다 보니 제가 그 로잔 영상을 보면서 자라왔기 때문에 그 무대에 서서 제가 춤을 췄다는 것 자체가 엄청 인상 깊었던 것 같아요. 제가 걸어왔던 길, 이게 맞는 방법일까? 근데 그런 의구심을 다 없앨 수 있게 제가 가는 길이 맞았다라는 거를 확인시켜줬던 것 같아요. 그래서 그런 감정이 들어서 조금 감격스러웠던 것 같아요. 한 배역에만 잘 할 수 있는 명수가 아니라 어떠한 배역을 받아도 다 넣어서 소화해낼 수 있는 그런 스펙트럼이 넓은 명수가 되고 싶습니다.
Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mo-gyan. As South Korea enters a new chapter under President Lee Jae-myung, the pressure is already building on the international stage, especially when it comes to trade with the United States. On June 6th, in their first call since Lee's inauguration, he and President Donald Trump agreed to fast-track talks on tariffs, which is a critical step in resetting the economic terms between the two allies. The third round of technical negotiations is now expected before the end of this month. But this isn't just another round of trade diplomacy. Prior to the call, the Trump administration enacted a sweeping tariff hike, doubling duties on imported steel and aluminum from 25 to 50, a direct blow to South Korea's export-heavy steel industry. And also, a day later, South Korea was added to the U.S. Treasury currency monitoring list, hinting that monetary policy could be leveraged in future trade talks as well. And within the frame tonight, we turn to trade expert Jeffrey Schott, who is a senior fellow at the Peterson Institute for International Economics, to help us understand what's coming next and how Korea can navigate the road ahead. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. So let's delve right into our discussion. So like I've said, on June 6th, President Lee Jae-myung held his first phone call with President Trump, and they agreed to swiftly reach a deal on tariff issues. Both leaders expressed a shared commitment towards a mutually satisfactory agreement, and the third round of talks is expected to be held within a month. Mr. Schott, what do you see as the biggest sticking point in this upcoming round?
Well, first I should say it was very constructive to have that early telephone call and a positive response on both sides to work together to try to find a resolution. The talks are not going to be easy because there are a number of interrelated issues, including the very large Korean trade surplus in automobiles, but also the steel tariffs that you mentioned, but also the defense burden sharing that links two key allies across the Pacific.
So it won't be that easy, but it could actually become a deal breaker moving forward. Now, on that broader front, Mr. Schott, after a phone call in April with former Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, President Trump has also mentioned the concept of this one-stop shopping, encompassing defense cost sharing and other security matters into this trade deal dialogue. Do you think Trump will officially push for this approach in talks with the new Korean administration?
Well, I think they'll be looking for changes on in Korea's posture on both commercial issues and on economic security issues. The two are vitally interrelated and critical for both our countries. And I think there's a lot that Korea brings to the table in deepening and broadening economic security of our alliance, and that can be a very positive factor in the trade discussions going forward.
Right, so commercial and economic security issues could be bundled up in a deal. So in this case, Mr. Schott, what could South Korea actually bring to the table? You've previously said that Korea should proactively propose win-win industrial cooperation initiatives in areas where Korean and American interests align. What would you say is Korea's key bargain chip?
Well, first and foremost, Korea is a solid ally of the United States. That's critically important and has been for a long time. But Korea is also a global leader in technology. And there are a lot of areas where Korean firms, as world-class firms, are doing more in building capabilities and production facilities in the United States. That's also very important. And a third area is Korea's world-class shipbuilding industry, where the United States has fallen behind. And this is an area where I think Korea can help deepen our mutual security interests in the Asia-Pacific and help rebuild U.S. shipbuilding capabilities over time.
So Korea may need to go beyond defense and also play offense with strong proposals as well. Meanwhile, the pressure is already being felt on the ground. With about a month left before the mutual tariff suspension expires, the Trump administration has intensified pressure. Like we've said in our intro, starting June 4th, a presidential executive order raised tariffs on imported steel and aluminum from 25% to 50%, and the impact is likely to be significant for Korean firms. How do you think the Korean steel industry would be able to respond to this?
Well, I think they have to take a measured approach in the short term and hope that the tariffs can be reduced. There's even a possibility that domestic litigation in the United States will force a reduction in the tariffs because of the way that the section of U.S. law, Section 232 of the Trade Act of 1962, used for national security purposes, has been casually used by the Trump administration. So I think there's a chance that there could be domestic litigation that moderates the tariff, but also the tariff could be moderated in the course of the bilateral negotiations between the United States and Korea. And for good reason, because Korea accounts for about 10% of U.S. steel imports. It did last year, at least. And it's a little odd to think that we're applying national security import restrictions mostly against our main allies in Europe and Asia. And Korea ranks fourth in terms of global suppliers of imports to the United States. And we should be treating our allies better than that.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Schott, you've briefly mentioned about domestic litigation. Speaking of which, let's touch upon that too. A lower court has ruled the reciprocal tariffs invalid, but a higher court has now temporarily brought them back. How might this legal back and forth affect trade talks between Seoul and Washington moving forward?
Well, this is an important point that actually has been on the sidelines of almost all your questions today, and that is simply this: there is a short-term response, and there is a response that takes into account what can occur over the medium term. Some of these issues. One might have to pay a price, which will be lose-lose for Korea and the United States, by having the tariffs imposed and obstructing trade, and increasing the costs of products that use steel and in their manufacturing. All of this just makes us both worse off. But if we can avoid a situation where these tariffs disrupt the prospects of reaching an overall agreement, then I think after a short period of disruption, even if there's a short period of disruption, we could find a solution a bit like the United Kingdom has found in its bilateral trade deal with the United States that allows the reduction or elimination of these special duties. And I think that would be the best thing. We have a free trade agreement between Korea and the United States. It should be at zero tariffs, and it should return to zero tariffs, from my point of view.
Mm-hmm. Now, President Trump has also justified the tariff hike as a measure to protect American industry. But some people actually interpret it as a strategic pressure to induce foreign companies to invest locally in the U.S. How would you interpret this move?
I think it's both. It provides some protection, and it provides an incentive for some companies, such as we've seen in the auto sector, to invest in more U.S. production facilities so that they can produce in the U.S. for the U.S. market and meet U.S. demand via Korea-owned or partially owned production facilities rather than by exporting directly from Korea. I suspect that's going to happen some more, but doing this raises the cost of production and makes the overall U.S. industry less competitive, and makes the products more costly, which means that U.S. consumers are likely to buy fewer of those products. So one has to think that this may not be the best solution for the United States to continue this policy of high tariff protection, even if it draws in a little bit more money from abroad.
Mm-hmm. So not all of it brings positive benefits to America's economy as well. Now, Mr. Schott, another lever the U.S. seems to be pulling are exchange rates. On June 5th, the Trump administration designated South Korea as a currency monitoring country in its first foreign exchange report. And the administration has previously signaled that exchange rate issues may be included in talks with countries pursuing so-called unfair currency practices. Do you think this designation will be used as leverage in tariff negotiations with Seoul?
Well, I think in the near term with Korea, probably not so much. I'm more optimistic on this issue. There were 9 countries that were listed for monitoring, based largely on data from 2024 with regard to trade and current account and the like. But the situation has changed quite a bit this year, and the won has appreciated quite a bit against the dollar in 2025 so far. And so I think some of those concerns have already been mitigated by movements in the currency markets this year.
That's good to hear. So we've been talking about this growing uncertainty regarding tariff negotiations. Mr. Shaw, what kind of strategic approach now should South Korea take in this dealings with the U.S.? President Lee Jae-myung has stated he will not rush into tariff talks. In this context, how should Korea respond to America's push for quick results?
Well, they've set a deadline for the imposition of much higher tariffs. I think the talks deserve great priority, and both presidents have indicated they feel that way as well. That was the gist of the phone conversation they had last week. But you can't sort of rush through these negotiations when they deal with very sensitive and important issues. You need to make sure that you spend enough time to get the details right. And I think in some areas we'll be able to make great progress relatively quickly. And in some areas, such as in shipbuilding, I think there are important new opportunities where Korea can offer some benefits short term from what is from production in Korea in return for increased support and training and investment in the U.S. market over the medium to long term. I think there's great opportunities here. The U.S. could benefit a lot from the expertise that Korea has in shipbuilding and semiconductors and elsewhere. So our partnership should be able to deepen to the benefit of both countries.
So do you mean South Korea should expand areas of cooperation in other industries as well in order to pursue trade negotiations with the U.S.?
No, I think for solid commercial reasons, to strengthen the economic security of Korea and the United States by deepening and building a more enduring alliance between our two countries, which is already very strong. I think there is the prospect for trading more, for investing more, for sharing information, for building more production facilities in the United States, for using Korean facilities to strengthen U.S. defense posture and performance in the Asia Pacific. It's an area, particularly in shipbuilding, where I think there is unrealized potential that the two governments can move quickly to take advantage of and hopefully use that as a reason why they can lower the extreme tariffs that have been proposed by the Trump administration.
Mm-hmm. So it would be a great negotiation tactic and also benefit both economies as well. Now, stepping back a little bit, Mr. Shaw, you've long been emphasizing Korea's accession to the CPTPP. Could you explain for us, why is this an especially important move at this time around?
Well, Korea, like a number of countries in the Asia-Pacific region, has important trade ties with the United States, but also with neighboring countries in East Asia. And it's critical for the strengthening of regional supply chains, which are so important for Korean industry and help support Korean exports, that Korea maintain its ties with all of the major countries in the region. and deepen its ties with the CPTPP countries in particular. Now, Korea already has a free trade agreement with 8 of the 12 CPTPP countries, but negotiating membership in the CPTPP would strengthen ties with Japan, with Mexico, with Malaysia, and Brunei. And that would help bring a lot of economic benefits in terms of economic security and in terms of increased markets, productive opportunities for Korean firms in the region and through its expanding exports to this very important market. So a lot of pluses, and joining the CPTPP would put it in a much better position in dealing with the 2 largest economies of the Asia-Pacific region, the United States and China. And it would still have good ties in dealing with both because of the Chorus FTA and because Korea still works closely with China in the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP, and through the China-Japan-Korea talks that are engaged trilaterally. So I think it just provides additional avenues for success for Korean policy and a way of promoting economic growth in Korea.
So in a moment where pressure is high and options seem limited, CPTPP could be more than just a trade deal. It might be Korea's long-term insurance as well. It's a very critical point to end our discussion on. Mr. Schott, thank you so much for your insights and making time for us tonight. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, that'll be all for Within the Frame tonight. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.
To set the facts straight. Get Korea right.